What's going on out there away from the fancy people like Global Wall Street?
I know you like dollars and cents. The average South Dakota family right now is paying over $604 more per month in living expenses than what they were in January of 2021. That's $7,000 plus per year more, and wages aren't going up that fast. When you start talking about that in places like South Dakota, the pain is real, and it's the same thing across the entire country. And the worst part about this whole thing is this is policy induced. When you start driving up the price of fuels, diesel, natural gas, and so forth by policy determination, and you start limiting the amounts of supplies that are being produced, and you recognize that you're doing it, and you do it anyway, then it's a policy-induced movement. We can do a lot to change that right now in the United States, and it's got to come back down to an administration recognizing that, look, I know they're fighting climate change, but the bottom line is you've got to have a strong economy to do a good job on that. And they are hurting this economy with their policies. And people in South Dakota feel that, and they're not happy about it.
Senator Rounds, Gerald Ford of the Republican Grand Rapids, Michigan persuasion years ago said he was going to whip inflation now. What is the Republican prescription day one to stop this inflation?
There are three parts to the policy. One is demand. You can do that through action at the Federal Reserve, but it's because we put a huge amount of cash into the economy earlier. And that was a Biden decision, and he did it without the assistance of Republicans in January of last year. Number two, you have to reduce the cost of energy, and that means you produce more energy, all of the above. Whether it be nuclear, whether it be more pumping, it means more leases being released, and then allowing them to get that crude oil out of the ground with additional licenses, and then allow them to be able to actually move that to the marketplace with pipelines. That would be an immediate thing. And finally, you have to address the workforce issues. Right now, and I know that this isn't a popular thing to talk about, but we have to have legal immigration reform. We need visas, we need H-2B visas, we need H-2A visas right now. And we've got legislation in place right now that we're recommending that would do that. All of those would help to reduce inflation in this country, and the effects would be immediate.
Well, Senator, just to push back a little bit, you're talking about the issues with certain policy prescriptions that led to the inflation, but a lot of economists say is driven by some of the supply disruptions, whether it's in China or particularly the war in Ukraine. How much do you see as inflation staying high as a result of certain national security decisions being made that you've supported?
Yeah, first of all, I think the actual inflationary trends with regard to the supply chains and so forth, a lot of that has to do with the cost of transportation of those items. Now, can you have supply disruptions? We had it during the previous administration, but you did not see that driving up inflation. You saw inflation begin almost immediately upon the recognition that we were going to have increases in the cost of energy within this country, and they were going to be increased by policy determination. Once again, if you take back and you look at the actual costs of energy and the impact that has on all types of pricing for services and for products, it's a no-brainer that you can begin to reduce inflation if you address the cost of energy. It's in all of those products.
Aside from just the energy issue, though, I'm wondering, Senator, would you agree with potentially relaxing certain tariffs on China, or perhaps changing certain stances in order to reduce inflation domestically, even if on a national security level it was viewed to be prudent to keep certain things in place?
I think that there is always the possibility of looking at modifying policy with regard to needed items. But remember, there's a reason why we put those in place in the first place, and that was to try to develop domestic production. But if you can't do it domestically and you've tried it, then to look at other alternatives with other countries. It's not that we want to produce everything in the United States. We'd love to have good trading partners. But we also have to recognize that simply going back to China does not fit into the long-term scheme. And as long as they're going to try to continue to steal the IP in this country, we've got to continue to recognize the need for enforcement of trade deals and the limitation of trade with China whenever possible, until they come around and recognize that they can't be stealing the IP, the copyrights and so forth. So, yeah, look, I'd be very stingy about going back on what we've already done with China. I'd try to develop some of those product lines with our other allies and other people that literally want to do business with us under the rule of law.